Welcome to another episode of Straight Out of Politics. I had to get Rockfin started. I wanted to start right away, but then at the last second I forgot I needed to start Rockfin. But anyway, welcome to the show. Welcome to Rockfin viewers. Welcome to everybody watching on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, and Facebook. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Let's start with this video. Already have it queued up, and where is it? Let's begin.
Dr. Stein, your running mate has called Obama, as mentioned earlier, and Uncle Tom when discussing Obama's response to Ferguson. The direct quote was, "Your Uncle Tom president says that there's no excuse for violence when it comes to the oppressed." Now, I mean, that's a comment for which he's been highly criticized for, and a comment that you said you would not have made. But do you stand by Mr. Baraka's characterization of the president?
So my comment was that I am not in a position to use that kind of metaphor. I would not do that. That would be very inappropriate for me as a person of privilege, as a white person. That's not my language. But we are a diverse ticket here because the American people are a diverse people, and we want to bring in the diversity of dialect and tone and language that actually represents the issues that the American people are struggling with. It should not just be a sanitized language that people in my position use. It needs to be also the hard knocks language of the oppressed people who are fighting these struggles.
So, Baraka, I think we want your comment too. Why do you say that?
Well, that was as Dr. Stein indicated, that was a conversation among us, among Black folks. And it was a characterization that said that here was an individual who used the dreams and aspirations of Black people in order to win those critical swing states.
Do you apologize for that?
For what? And to win those states to become the president, and then turns around and all he does is serve objective, powerful white structures. There's nothing that Black people, African people, got as a consequence of his ascendancy to power. So, that characterization is how we look at how we characterize certain individuals who are placed in a position where they can do something for their own people, and they choose to look out for themselves and their masters. So no, I don't apologize for that at all.
Love that. Absolutely love that from Ajamu. And I got a couple of other videos, but what I wanted to do was kind of start the episode a little bit different with just kind of playing some of the short clips of the coverage of the items I'm going to be covering. So that'll be one of the stories. And then where's the other one? Is it this one? Is it this one? It's this one. Then we'll be covering Madeleine Albright. I thought this was a funny clip. And here will be the other story we'll be covering today. Let's listen.
Your MSC. I am delighted to be here and to have a conversation with the former U.S. Secretary of State under Bill Clinton, Madeleine Albright. Madeleine Albright was actually the first female Secretary of State in the U.S. and it is a...
Oh, did they stop it? Let's see what happened here.
Pleasure to have you here. It's an honor to have a conversation with you.
Well, I'm delighted to be interviewed by you. Thank you very much. I didn't say that.
I don't know why it's stopping, but you get the gist. Let's see what keeps
I
on.
have to tell you, I have forever been saying that there's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other. Right. Therefore, I was looking at Hillary and I said, there's a special place in hell.
Secretary Albright, it's a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to encourage all of you to also take part in this conversation by commenting in the comment section below.
Okay, so if you don't know what's going on, imperialist Madeleine Albright passed away. I think it was yesterday, and this is a video somebody put together about it, and a Kasparian is interviewing her in hell. I guess that's what this is. So I thought it was hilarious, but let me play it again.
Welcome to your MSC. I am delighted to be here and to have a conversation with the former...
It pauses there every time. Let's see what happens here.
U.S. Secretary of State under Bill Clinton, Madeleine Albright. Madeleine Albright was actually the first female Secretary of State in the U.S. And it is a pleasure to have you here. It's an honor to have a conversation with you.
Well, I'm delighted to be interviewed by you. Thank you very much. I didn't say that. I have to tell you, I have forever been saying that there's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other.
Right.
Therefore, I was looking at Hillary and I said, there's a special place in hell.
Secretary Albright, it's a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to encourage all of you to also take part in this conversation by commenting in the comment section below. Welcome to your embassy.
All right, I'll stop it there. I won't play it again. I thought that was hilarious. So that's the other story we'll be covering today. But we're going to start with the Trump story. There's no graphic, there's no video for that. It's just a discussion. And that's Donald Trump. I mean, I think at this point, we can, now that we've been living through a good enough time to assess the Biden administration, I think we can now have the discussion about did we as a country elect the lesser of the two evils. I'm going to put that up on the screen. Okay, so those that jump in later in the conversation and know what we're talking about. So Donald Trump was the lesser of two evils. I am gonna pull up some items here in just a minute, some tweets, just to gauge everybody's opinion. But I think just like looking at without a biased lens, without looking at a through it, through the duopoly framing, Joe Biden is the most effective evil, or the Democrats are the more effective evil. And in this case, Joe Biden is showing that he is the more effective evil between him and Donald Trump. So if you're more effective at your evilness, and now this is something that how we kind of tried to play both sides, where Nick said, the famous person who from the Black Agenda Report, I forget his name, but it says, what's that quote he said? I'll try to get, let me see if I can remember the name first. But anyway, if you're more effective at being evil, doesn't that make you if you're more effective at being evil, isn't your opponent the lesser of the two evil? Because let's say Donald Trump wants to do 10 bad things. Let's say Donald Trump wants to do 10 bad things, evil things. Let's use the word evil in this context. So Donald Trump wants to do 2 evil things. 10 evil things. And let's say Joe Biden wants to do 6. So you say, well, obviously, this is the lesser of 2 evil. Hold on. He has 10 objectives, Donald Trump, but he's only able to execute 1 or 2. Joe Biden only has 5 on his list, but he's able to execute all 5. The more effective evil, to me, is the worst evil. So that would just by default make Donald Trump the lesser of the 2 evil. Now, those who are not serious about having discussions, those who are reactionaries, they're going to take that 10 seconds I just said. Look what they're saying over at RBN. Donald Trump is this. They love Donald Trump. And I don't care if they do that. And the people you want to convince with your lies and propaganda, I don't care if they believe you. Truth doesn't change because you decide not to tell it. So anyway, back back to the conversation. So if a person is more effective, has a shorter list, but is more effective at executing his list, his or her list, or in this case, we're saying his list. To me, that makes them a more of an evil. So, for example, let's take the presidency of Donald Trump. Donald Trump's presidency. What do we have? We had leftists fighting him. We had liberals fighting him. Joe Biden is in there. Now we just have leftists fighting him. You see the difference? Even in that, even in the resistance to neoliberalism, the reaction from the American public also indicates a greater evil in Joe Biden, because half of the so-called left-leaning thinkers, and we're lumped in with liberals in this Overton window, half of them go to sleep when their neoliberalism in office executing the same plan. Because the plan is given to both parties by their corporate masters. So to me, that makes him, that's two reasons. The fact that people literally went to sleep when Joe Biden was elected. Now think about lefty media, because leftists, not a lot of leftists, I don't even know what percentage, a lot of leftists listen to lefty media. In a second here, I think I see a good comment. I want to make sure I put a star on that. Yeah. Okay, so got it started. All right, so what was I saying about Donald Trump, lefty media? I forget that point. But so I'm up to two reasons. The reaction, actually, this was what I was saying. The reaction in the from the public constituents, the people who would vote left-leaning for leftist kind of politics, the resistance is cut in half when when Joe Biden is in office. That alone makes him a more effective. That adds to his ability to be more effective at his evilness. And just keep in mind, whether it's a Democrat in office or Republican in office, they're still executing the plan of their corporate master. There's one plan. One plan. Pfizer, I say this all the time. I've said it in many videos. Pfizer doesn't have a different plan when Republicans are in office versus Democrats are in office. If Donald Trump was in office, we would have saw the same sort of rollout of the vaccinations, the same sort of push for vaccinations. Mainstream media want to pretend like if Donald Trump was in office, the vaccination would have been skeptical, but Pfizer would have put in a call that no, roll out the plan as constructed. So yeah, so that reason, and then the for those that just joined, because I saw a couple more people join, and then the first reason is just it's because he's more effective. He's able to execute the plan. He's been in office for 30-40 years or something like that. I think closer to 40 years he's been in office, so he knows all the lobbyists, he knows all the people. He can effectively get his plan done better. So even if he has a shorter list, he can get more done. And then there's the number 3, and this is the part I'm probably not going to go into. Maybe I'll look up some receipts, but I mean, just the numbers. If you just look at the numbers, I think it's immigration, worse than Donald Trump and immigration, more deportations. People can put more items in there in the what is he worse than? Let's do that. What is Joe Biden, what has the Joe Biden presidency been worst in doing in as far as numbers? So if you have that, I'll put your comment up. Actually, let me change one setting here for this. 1 second, everybody. Just noticed this default setting has to be switched. All right, I think I got it done and save. Okay, that should fix that for those. Those in the chat will know that you're affected by that switch. Give it a second to update. All right, so where was I? So I was just giving the reasons for Donald Trump being the more effective evil, and I will sort of look up some more. I know Nick's tweet is going to come up. More effective evil. No, Nick's tweet is going to come up. So I'll put some of those up. But if you have some comments on what in the numbers, because we went with two reasons. The final reason is he literally has higher numbers in like deportations. He literally has higher numbers in worse on climate change, issuing more drilling permits. And this is people say, well, some of those drilling permits were struck down by courts, but he issued them is the point. Right? So if you have any other receipts or comments, please put that in there and I'll put that up there. Now I'm looking for some receipts here on Twitter. I typed in more effective evil and let me type in Nick's name. MMA. Right? It's still MMA, right? Socialist. I'm sure I'm missing something there. Okay. Oh, here it goes. Perfect. All right, so now if I'm not sharing my screen, let me share my screen here. So here, something I found. This is from Nick, where he talks about the more effective evil. Wow, I couldn't believe it. I found it on the first try. And this is just a tweet, a brilliant article by Chris Hedges that essentially sums up what I've been saying on this cursed app for the last 2 years. The Democratic Party is the more effective evil. And this is the article. Is that going to pop up on the same? I hope it doesn't go to a different screen. Then I got to pull it. Yeah, so it does. I got to pull up a different. I have to share the other screen because it pulls up in a different tab here. So let's share the other one. Oops. Okay, so right here, Chris Hedges article. Democrats, the more effective evil. This was written. Oh, this is recent. Wow. The U.S. is a de facto one-party state where the ideology of national security is what is that? Sacrosanct, unsustainable debt props up the empire, and the primary business is war. Hang on 1 second here. Let's see what that is. Yeah, ridiculous. All right, just getting some tweets from the RBN crew. All right, so let's get to some comments, and then I'm gonna get back to that that I was reading there. So let's get to some comments first. Nuclear war is too late to make any changes. Okay, this is a good one. Biden wants to be known as a war president, and he may just get it as the nuclear war president, which is like what they're marching to. And like, look, and that's another example of what's happening. Look how he's instigating this war. Like this war should be over. There's a lot of international from an international perspective, I should say, is a better way of saying it. Putin's demand seems pretty reasonable. And this could be over if they really cared about the people in the Ukraine, which they don't, in this proxy war. So let's continue with another comment. Okay, let's go like this. By making us worry about things like Russia or World War III, this is effectively canceling all domestic policy. Nobody is allowed to be concerned about people dying in our own country. That is a great, great point. So all this war propaganda, right? And having us on edge about this nuclear, guess what we're not going to focus on? All the terrible shit that's happening here. Like, no, we're going to focus on it, but guess what the media is going to have an excuse not to focus on? And people will just go, oh, well, yeah, I can't pay my rent and I'm getting evicted and, I'm only eating one meal a day or I'm on the house, but hey, we want to break a nuclear war, so I guess my needs will just have to wait. That's essentially the effect that's wanted, based on this comment here. Thank you for the comment, Kevin. He and Victoria Newland installed the I know it says in, but that's who it is. Victoria Newland installed the neo-Nazi government in the Ukraine that no one in the mainstream media, let's start using corporate media, wants to discuss. Another great comment. He, as in Joe Biden and Victoria Nuland, installed the neo-Nazi government in the Ukraine with the overthrow in 2014 and all the events in 2013 that led up to it. That no one in corporate media wants to talk about. Another great, I think that's Shy Fryer. Hope I said that right. Thank you for the comment. Let's go to the next one. Betsy Duvals has investments in student loan companies. I'm assuming that means loan, not load. Student loan companies. If I mistakenly read that, please let me know. Let's try to get some different people's comments here. Trump wasn't the one making sure we never escape student debt. That's true. It's so easy to sell the Trump is the worst of two evils if Trump is the one that's yelling out a bunch of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, because just as humans or maybe as Americans, the person that's the loudest and saying off-color things when we're talking about political civil discourse, he's saying off-color things. He's not willing to be 100% on board in the way that the military industrial complex wants to proceed. So they all demonize him. And I mean, he's terrible. Don't get me wrong, but he's not any more terrible than Joe Biden. Actually, he's the lesser of two evils, and we're living through it. You know how bad you got to be worse than Trump? And Joe Biden has managed to accomplish that in the first couple of months of his presidency. The scapegoating of not coming through, following through with his problems, and scapegoating that using the rotating villains, the two current ones, Cinema and Manchin. So yeah, thank you for the comment. Biden is a perfect puppet, the perfect meat puppet for the oligarch billionaires. Did well putting Biden into office. He's like a vessel state for the oligarch. Can we say that? Like I mean, this is clearly he's not in his right mind. The donors are really running the show here. Oh yeah, forgot about that. COVID deaths. Doesn't that make them worse? I completely forgot about that. Thank you for that. So deportations, but let's say you're a conservative. So you wouldn't consider that bad, but as leftists in our we're saying we consider that bad. But let's say you're conservative, that doesn't count. COVID deaths counts for everybody, and he has the vaccination. Yeah, another one: stimulus checks. Another great point. Remember the whole okie dokie they pulled? 2,000 out the door. Elect these two people in Georgia, and it's 2,000 out the door. Oh, 1,400 because we already gave you the 600 at Trump. You like that? You like how he pulled that? The 600 that Trump gave you, we're going to include that in the Biden shit. The Biden 2,000 plan, 600 of that is coming from Trump. So another comment here. Trump gave me $1,400 COVID money. Biden gave me $947. Oh, it was means tested. Yes, we put that up there. More COVID deaths. That's absolutely right. It says Biden and Trump, don't they both ultimately have the same handlers? Yeah. Yep. Absolutely right. Let's see here. In 2 years, I kind of want to see Hill run against Trump again, just for the sheer absurdity of it. Oh, Hillary. Oh, I was like, Hill, what the hell? It took me a while to think back. Okay. She would lose. I'm almost thinking she wouldn't want to do that. Because I don't think she would win. I think she can go campaign in the areas that she didn't campaign the last time. She can go there multiple times and she still would lose. That's what I think. So thank you for the comment. And then thank you for that. Okay, so I think now let's get back to just to read a couple of lines from this article here. Written just last month. Oh, let me make sure this is on the screen. Yes, it is on the screen. So I think it's probably large enough for a lot of you to follow along, but you can hear if you can't. When all else fails, when you are clueless about how to halt a 7.5 inflation rate, when your Build Back Better bill is gutted, when you renege on your promise to raise the minimum wage or for give student debt, when you can't halt the Republican suppression of voting rights, when you have no idea how to handle the pathetic, which the pandemic, I said pathetic, but the pandemic, which has claimed 900 lives, 16% of the world's total deaths, although the U.S. is less than 5% of the world's population. Wow. When the stock market fluctuates on wild roller coaster rides of highs and lows, when what little help the government offers to the labor force, half of whom 80 million experienced a period of unemployment last year, sees the termination of the extension of unemployment benefits, rental assistance, forbearance for student loan, emergency checks, the moratorium on evictions, and expansion of the child tax credit. When you watch passively as the equal side gathers momentum, then you must make the public afraid of enemies, foreign and domestic. And that's where we're in right now. Actually, we might cover a lot of this article now that I'm reading it. So maybe I should have changed this to. I didn't know that I was going to stumble upon this article here. So I would add Chris Hedges as the thumb so that all of you would have known we would have been talking about Chris Hedges. But hopefully, as you trickle in, you'll learn that we're going to be talking about, because I know our audience loves when we do content on Chris Hedges. So let's continue in the comments here. Let's see here. If these Ukraine refugees thinks the door is open. So I used to just throw comments up and read them on screen. But then I realized that we have some people in our comments that aren't good actors, even if they disagree. So I don't want to inadvertently throw them up and discover that, oh, there's a bad actor that we shouldn't give attention to, but I put their comment on screen already, and it happened a couple of times. So I'm trying to get better at reading it before I put it up. Okay, here we go. Russia and China are going to come out on top of all of this in the Ukraine. Just see what happens to the petrodollar is gone. I did this story yesterday. The petrodollar. Now it's a little hyperbolic language when we say it's collapsing, when we say it's over. What we're meaning is, in that sort of way that we're talking, is that the petrodollar losing its dominance means a lot of economic pain in the US, because we're essentially living on a house of cards. United States is spending all this money here and over there because we're backed by oil. And what makes that so rock solid is that I think they say like 80% of I don't want to get the numbers right, but we made this deal. I think Nixon was the president who made this deal with Saudi Arabia that any oil they sell has to be sold in American dollars, which props it up. So we're out here spending money left and right and saying, hey, our money's good. We're good for it. Right? We're good for it because it's backed by oil and we're the dominant one. So if another player or two players enter that and we lose that, that means economic pain here. That means higher inflation here. If you think 7.5% inflation is high, wait till the effects of this happens. So all of that wrapped together. So anyway, thank you for the comment. And let's see if there's one more. Okay. The Dems or Democrats can't motivate people at the national level. The results are determined by the obedience to or fear of the Republican candidate. Absolutely. Like fear is as American as apple pie, even though I'm not sure apple pie is even American, but fear is as American as racism. Let's put it that way. Like fear has been the thing they've been selling all along. That's how they sold the white population on brutalizing black people. That's how they sold the white population on the genocide of the indigenous people of Americans of the United States. So let's continue with this article that Chris Hedges is actually bringing up some great points here. And I love that first paragraph. So let's continue. So you must manufacture an existential threat. Let's examine this last part here. So he's saying, when you have all of this terrible shit going on, right? You must make the public afraid of enemies, foreign and domestic. This is key. You must make the public afraid of enemies, foreign and domestic. Because everybody is thinking this war should be over. And it was another video I played, but it was I forget his name, but it was a guy, former colonel or something like that in the military, went on Fox, was answering questions. He was like, no, Zelensky is not some hero. He's a puppet. And it's like, this war could have been over in two days ago. It's like, the things are pretty reasonable. Just accept it. He's like, it's in our interest as the United States and Russia's interest that Ukraine remains neutral. He's saying this on air, which gets the news anchor flabbergasted on what actually is being said. And he was like, I don't understand why it hasn't ended unless he's being told not to. If you have all of this other terrible shit going on here, and you saw the poll numbers when all of this started sort of ramped up about the war, is when the poll numbers literally reached 30%. Then this switched. Then this took hyperspeed. United States domestically is doing terrible. And the government does not want to do nothing because their donors and corporate masters do not want to spend any money. So we all suffer. So you create this possible World War III, possible, keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and making people fear that. And say, okay, our stuff can be, hold on. That's essentially how I read that first article. So you must manufacture an existential threat. Terrorists at home, Russia and China abroad. Expand state power in the name of national security. Beat the drum of war. War is the antidote let me highlight this. War is the antidote to divert public attention from government corruption and incompetency. Fantastic point that Chris makes here. A great point. Let's see here. Absolutely, he nails it. When you're the reason they use race, this also is a reflection of the society being racist. Is that the reason race works is because it's a racist society. If you lived in a society where racism was kind of foreign to the society, you understand how that wouldn't work. Yes, so they use things to divide us racially. What the ruling class did right around the civil rights era, when it became not cool to be racist openly, they just started shifting language. It became economics, and so segregation by race became segregation by economics. But if you make economics and race align quite overlap very much, you see how it's the same thing, but you're not talking about you're not talking about racial segregation, even though there is still segregation along economic lines, which happen to parallel or run very close to racial lines. You see? So, yeah, thank you for the comment. Let's see what else. We are gonna. We are in a class war the wealthy has always used race to keep people divided. If we stay, this is true. If we stay divided, the wealthy can control the right, divide and conquer. And just that comment just make me want to just talk about just to make this point about race and class is the same thing. To Black people see race and class, especially because I can only speak from a Black perspective because that's what I am. So it's the same. So look at it this way is a better way of looking at it, is that we have to understand that race is class because race is made up. Do you understand? Like, we can't, like, race is a made up thing. There is no such thing as different races. We have different skin complexions, and that can go from all the way from heredity, from where we lived. It's not a coincidence that it's very hot in Africa, and the people who are indigenous to Africa or that area had darker complexions. Like, that's just what it is. The creation of race doesn't make it valid. So race is a made up thing. So if race is a made up thing, doesn't that make the term Black as a race? That's just the name of a category. Like, you're categorizing somebody as the very poor. So if your terminology of saying somebody you classify as very poor if you make less than $12,000 a year, so that category of people is called very poor. That's your category name. The category of the people with this complexion who happen to be descendants of African slaves is just called Black. That's the name of our category of class. You get what I'm saying? So it's just the name. But anyway, let's get back. I love these discussions that go off onto tangents into different things. So hopefully you're also enjoying the discussion here. Where did I live off? Oh, here. War is the antidote. I have that highlighted there. Oh, yeah, on your screen it shows gray. On the camera it shows gray. War is the antidote to divert public attention from government corruption and incompetence. No one plays the game better than the Democratic Party. The Democrats, as journalist and co-founder of Black Agenda Report, Glenn Ford said, this is the quote I was trying to remember earlier. And it was Glenn Ford, whose name I was trying to remember. The Democrats, as journalist and co-founder Black Agenda Report, Glenn Ford said, are not the lesser evil. They are the more effective evil. And that's essentially what I'm saying in this case. Evil is evil. Democrats are evil. Republicans are evil. Biden is evil. Joe Biden, Donald Trump is evil. Like Hillary, they're all evil. I'm just simply addressing the question or the statement or the notion in the 2020 election where let's just pick the lesser of two evils, people. And I'm saying Joe Biden wasn't the lesser of two evil. Let's continue with this great article by Chris Hedges. The U.S. burdened by de facto tax. The U.S. burdened by de facto tax boycotts by the rich and corporations is sinking in debt, the highest in our history. The U.S. government budget deficit was $2.77 trillion for the 2021 budget year that ended September 30th, the second highest annual deficit on record. It was exceeded only by the 3.13 trillion deficit for 2020. The total U.S. national total debt is over 30 trillion. Household debt grew by 1 trillion last year. The total debt balance in our government Ponzi scheme is now 1.4 trillion higher than it was at the end of 2019. Our wars are waged on borrowed money. This is what I was saying earlier about the petrodollar. And he's talking about how I'm going to start over right here. The U.S. burdened by de facto tax boycotts by the rich. So we're sinking further and further in debt, right? And that's what he's breaking down here. None of this debt is sustainable. At the same time, the U.S. is facing the ascendancy of China, where the economy is projected to overtake the U.S. economy by the end of the decade. Washington's slew of desperate financial tricks, flooding the global market with new dollars and lowering interest rate to near zero, staved off major depressions after the 2000 .com crash, 9/11, and the 2008 financial meltdown. The cheap interest rates led corporations and banks to borrow massively from the Federal Reserve, often to paper over shortfalls and bad investments. The result is U.S. businesses are deeper in debt and at any time in deeper in debt than any time in U.S. history. Added to this morass is rising inflation caused by businesses that have increased prices in spite of efforts to make up for lost revenue from supply chain shortages and rising shipping costs. The economic downturn and slight wage increase triggered by the pandemic. This inflation has forced the Fed to curtail the growth of the money supply and raise interest rates, which then pushes corporations to further raise prices. Man, this shit is fucking fucked up, bro. This shit is terrible. Man, this shit is terrible. The more I'm reading into this shit, like we have got to this. There's so much happening all at this time. Like we are at a time in history that's going to be written about and studied about. Like it is so much crazy shit happening right now. The collapsing of U.S. hegemony, the rise of China being the dominant power, the fall of the petrodollar, the pandemic, almost 1 million people dead. Workers have never been seeing it worse time, with automation going up, with layoffs, with pay, and with inflation. The police state is getting more and more militarized and killing more and more people. George Floyd thing protests didn't stop nothing. And we got our government playing war games, nuclear war games. Like voting is not, voting's not going to do nothing here, people. Anyway, so let me get off this story. Let's move to the next story with Amaju. So let's move to that story and talk about that story, because this shit, we're in bad shape here. We are in terrible shape, and the population is not reacting fast enough to what's happening. Like we're waking up and people are waking up, but we're not waking up fast enough. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned the climate crisis. Haven't even mentioned that. And there's a glacier in the North Pole that's being held up by this bridge or ridge, and that ridge is falling. into the ocean. If that ice falls into the ocean, the sea levels, I think they're saying like 2 feet. That is a catastrophic. This is the perfect time for us to be pivoting away from fossil fuels. But that is not even part of the discussion. That is not even part of the discussion right now. Oh Lord, this is pretty terrible here. Let's go to this one here. All right, let's share this one here. So this is right around the George Floyd protests where Ajamu went on here to talk about the George Floyd protests, and he actually talks about class solidarity and a lot of other things in this video. So it's a very conversation-rich video that we're going to cover here now. So yeah. So I'm in that last segment. Trump is obviously at this point the lesser of the two evil, and it's been proven by the numbers, by the COVID numbers, by the deportation numbers, by the drill permit numbers, by the war numbers, like everything. And then you have half the population that's shielding for them because they're asleep, because their person is in office. I'm talking about liberals. That's another reason why he's a more effective evil, because half the population, half the left-leaning people, thinkers, just go to sleep. And then he's just more effective at being evil. So those are the 3 points. I just wanted to sum up that last segment before I played this video. Those are the 3 points that make him, in my opinion, makes Donald Trump the lesser of the two evils. And Donald Trump is evil and terrible, and I'm not voting for him, and I don't suggest anybody vote for him, either party. So let's play this video. I'll stop and start and comment, and we'll have this discussion together. So let's go.
So what's been your first reaction to this latest wave of protests, and how would you compare it to what you've seen during other times? For example, mobilizations during the civil rights era, the LA uprising, and more recently, Ferguson, Baltimore, and Black Lives Matter about 5 years ago.
Well, one thing that's significant and very, very important is the international solidarity that's being expressed worldwide. I think people are recognizing that the struggle within the US is a struggle that impacts everyone, because, of course, we are at the center of empire. And it's also important, too, that people understand, and I think that they do, that this fight is not just a fight for justice for George Floyd, but it is a fight that is bringing attention to the ongoing human rights crisis within the US and the ongoing war being waged against Black and brown working class people in this country. So the connections between the struggles in the US and the solidarity of people around the world does signal a very, very important departure, and one that does harken back to the days of the 1960s, when the struggles of African people in the US was the centerpiece of resistance for many.
Now, as these protests are accompanied by discussions of police brutality and the historical racism of US law enforcement and the state, do you think people are also beginning to see the way in which these issues tie in with capitalism? And are young people able to see this with a class analysis?
That understanding is beginning to develop. People are beginning to make the pivot away from the notion of George Floyd being a one-off situation to one that is can only be understood within the context of the role of the police force as the cutting edge of.
I'm going to rewind that because this is a great question that she asked here about are people putting together the connection to capitalism, and are we starting to have a class analysis? That is a great question. One of the best questions I've ever seen on is this a newscast? This is Telesler is what it says behind her. But let's listen. Let me see if I rewind it far enough.
For many.
Now, as these protests are accompanied by discussions of police brutality and the historical racism of US law enforcement and the state, do you think people are also beginning to see the way in which these issues tie in with capitalism? And are young people able to see this with a class analysis?
That understanding is beginning to develop. People are beginning to make the pivot away from the notion of George Floyd being a one-off situation to one that is can only be understood within the context of the role of the police force as the cutting edge of enforcement for the capitalist state. They are also making the connection between the death of George Floyd and the hundreds of African American people who are dying every day from capitalism. We call it it's called COVID-19. We call it the colonial virus. And so people are making those connections and understanding that even after the George Floyd situation.
That's the first time I've heard it called the colonial virus. That's the first time I've heard it described that way. Oh, thank you for putting this in there. Teleslur is Venezuela's news. That's why it was such a fucking great question. So Teleslur is Venezuela's news network. So that is awesome. Awesome. Okay, thank you for that. Yes. I've never heard the COVID-19 referred to as the colonial virus. That's the first time I've heard this particular, not the term, but this virus be referred to. And I believe, yeah, because this George Floyd protest was going on right when the pandemic had come out. So no, I have not. First time. Yeah, put that one up already. All right, so let's continue with the video because there's another one after this one.
Situation is resolved, that the deaths and the structural violence that people are exposed to, as long as we have capitalism, will continue. So those connections are being made, and that's why this fight in the U.S. is not going away anytime soon.
So you yourself are an organizer. What would you say about the organizational structures of these protests, or the lack thereof, or the potential for a more militant and concerted direction with these mobilizations?
Well, people are starting to make the pivot to the to organization. I think everybody recognizes the importance of mobilizations,
yes,
but also recognize the limitations. So there will be a greater and more deeper organization coming out of these activities. In the Black Alliance for Peace, we are advancing our campaign, no compromise, no retreat, defeat the war against the African working class and poor in the US and abroad. So we are making the connections.
That's what RBN wants to do more of. We as American leftists, as American leftists, self-reflecting, being honest, we're small. We're a small amount. And that means we have to be better at organizing.
Between the absolute necessity to fight capitalism, to make the connection between militarism in the U.S.
Oh, making it an international fight. That's the point I had lost for a second. Making this an international fight. So, if we gain $25 minimum wage here, the fight's not over. Because oppressed people all over the world is not getting paid the right amount. So we have to fight for all workers. That's how workers, because the imperialist is making this a global market. So if they're making it a global market, then we have to fight globally for workers. Otherwise, they're putting what they're doing now, pinning workers against each other. having us saying, you know, jobs being shipped over, you're paying them, you know, international, you're paying them a lot less. So that competition drove the better paying jobs on this soil overseas. But if we demanded that people in China, that people in, you know, Malaysia was another place that makes a lot of clothing, India, if we demanded that, no, you're going to pay those people $25 an hour too. You see how making it an international fight is good for all of us. They can't pin us one against the other. So great point in this video. So let's continue here. Hang on a second here. I'm just reading something. I'm not lost. I'm just reading something. All right, so let's continue.
And militarism on the African continent, to raise up in opposition to the sanctions being imposed on peoples and states across the planet. We are raising issues with the U.S. budget and the prospects of nuclear war. So
now I'm going to turn his sound off. I'm going to come back to it because I want us to focus in. You see what that protest looks like back there? I want to rewind it a little bit. Look. This is what we need. When we get in the streets like this, there is not going to be any stopping us. When we get in the streets like this, organized, that is what the key part. When we get into the streets like this, organized, what are they going to say? How can they stop us? It's coming. It's coming. So let's now put the volume back up and get back to this part of this interview before I move on to the next part. And let's go.
The absolute necessity.
Let's move forward.
Crisis. We made that call, but we recognize that in the end, it is only the organized people of this country that are going to be able to objectively protect our human rights. We understand we have to fight for our human rights, and we are preparing to do just that.
So the U.S. capitalist class is responsible for generations of flagrant looting upon which the country was founded. What do you say to the media and those operatives who have tagged working class citizens as looters and violent rioters while most of us are getting ransacked?
I love this part. Man, why can't our media be like this? Like, she's making the point. She's not asking, tell me what your description. The anchor is making the point that this is what the fuck it is. Now let's talk about it.
It's only the organized people of this country
that
are going to be able to objectively protect our human rights. We understand we have to fight for our human rights, and we are preparing to do just that.
So the U.S. capitalist class is responsible for generations of flagrant looting upon which the country was founded. What do you say to the media and those operatives who have tagged working class citizens as looters and violent rioters while most of us are getting ransacked?
Well, we say that basically the real looting is taking place by the capitalist class. And one of the most brazen examples of that was the legislation that was meant to bail out the economy, but what really ended up being a bailout for the bankers and the corporations to the tune of billions of dollars. So that is the significant looting that we're concerned with. We're not concerned with some minor looting of some stores or some minor property damage in the course of people involved in struggle. And we are hoping that people don't get too.
This is such a key point, and it goes with revolutionary discipline. And it's kind of I'm not going to use that comparison, but let me have him restate this point that, hey, we're out there burning down shit, burning down buildings, looting cars. That's like the Palestinians have rocks in different hand weapons, handguns pointed at Israel. And Israel responses with bombs and stuff. Like, it's not, you get what I'm saying? It's not comparable.
Well, we say that basically the real looting is taking place by.
Right. So it's not comparable. But when you go to corporate media, they're going to be look at these people doing this, all this damage, millions of dollars of damage. I forget what they said during the protests. A couple of 10 million, whatever they said, 300 million. Really? Try 300 billion. No, actually, try in the trillions when we're talking about the wars. So part of revolutionary discipline is what he's saying here, and I'll let him say it in his own words here. But this is part of what revolutionary discipline is.
Well, we say that basically the real looting is taking place by the capitalist class. And one of the most brazen examples of that was the legislation that was meant to bail out the economy, but what really ended up being a bailout for the bankers and the corporations to the tune of billions of dollars. So that is the significant looting.
We're looted $780 billion military budget. That's looting. That's our money. But tell me more about, some restaurant that burnt down. Okay.
That we're concerned with. We're not concerned with some minor looting of some stores or some
revolutionary discipline. We're not concerned with some minor lootings of some stores and some other retail places. We're not concerned with that. We're more concerned with the looting of the American people. That's the reaction of a revolutionary when a media person is trying to create a divide by saying, "Are you okay with this?" Oh, well, I'm not okay with the looting of Americans' tax money. That's what I'm not okay. Or are you okay with this burning down? I'm not concerned with any minor burning down of stores, looting of buildings, retail stores. I'm more concerned with the hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars that has been looted from the America. That's the response. So I love it. I have not covered Madeleine Albright yet. So you are in for it. If you came for that, you have not missed it. So great video here with it's not, is this the one? Hang on one second, let me make sure. Okay, so this is it right here. This is the next video. So this one I can get rid of. All right, so let me bring up another video that kind of it's also Ajamu, and this goes to the thumbnail topic, which is Barack Obama. In the previous video that I showed about him in when he was being questioned as the Green Party vice presidential candidate after calling Barack Obama and Uncle Tom, this is where he goes into more detail, the numbers, why. So this is a very important video to talk about neoliberalism, a lot of different things. So let's go.
We're calling Barack Obama Uncle Tom, and wanted to know if you could comment. Dr. Stein didn't want to speak for you in that setting, so we wanted to create the space for you to speak to that here, because I know I think our readers are interested in your response.
Yeah, it's one of those conversations we were saying earlier, how you have a conversation that takes place in a different context, different time, but with social media, it becomes like it happened just now.
Right.
That was one of those conversations that happened, earlier, happened among Black folks. Okay, and I characterize Barack Obama's positions as one in which he basically was supporting concentrated white power, and that he basically used the Black vote in order to advance himself individually, his individual career, and that because he did not do anything to try to address the issue of concentrated white power, that he was an enthusiastic supporter to advance concentrated international white power, and because he was propped up as this symbol of Black advancement, that all of that to me translated into what we call Uncle Tomism. There was nothing there that was put in place to deal with the objective conditions of Black and poor and brown poor.
If somebody hasn't said in the comments already, let me go ahead and just say it now. The real Uncle Tom, and people say this all the time, the real Uncle Tom was actually sort of the opposite of what we know it to be today. But today, this is what Uncle Tomism is known as. So already know that part.
Poor people in this country and working class people. He used all of the power of the state to aggressively try to get the Trans-Pacific Partnership passed. But yet we saw very little aggression when it came to trying to make sure that unemployment benefits were extended.
That's such a great point. You see it in Joe Biden, where you see it's a completely different strategy. How Ukraine, how did they muster up? Where are we at now? $15 billion? How did that come? Where'd that come from? Because it took them several months to send us $1,400. Several months. And they means tested the fuck out of that.
We saw that he gave.
So let me rewind this by a little bit here.
Poor people in this country and working class people. He used all of the power of the state to aggressively try to get the Trans-Pacific Partnership passed. But yet we saw very little aggression when it came to trying to make sure that unemployment benefits were extended. We saw that he gave political cover to all of the other white colonial states by undermining the Durban process early in his administration in 2009, after we did everything we could do to have the U.S. participate in the Durban process. They still pulled out. We know that he gave a political cover and participated in the assault on Africa in terms of the assault on Libya. We know that he was involved in trying to stop President Aristide from Haiti from returning back to Haiti. We saw that under his administration, the African Command has expanded itself throughout the African continent. In every place that they have gone, we have seen an uptick in so-called terrorist activities. We saw that under his administration, they doubled the bond, the reward on our dear sister Assata Shakur. We see that under his administration, they've only been able to, his Department of Justice has only.
Now, the doubling the bond of Mr. Core, that was one, I don't know, can't believe I didn't hear about that, but that was one I did not hear about. Or maybe I heard and maybe I forgot, but it felt like it was new information to me. But I'm going to rewind it back right there.
We have seen an uptick in so-called terrorist activities. We saw that under his administration, they doubled the bond, the reward on our dear sister Assata Shakur. We see that under his administration, they've only been able to, his Department of Justice has only prosecuted one of these killer cops. So, for me, all that demonstrates or reflects is someone that is, has only been sort of a symbol for Black folks and the Black misleadership class, and a manifestation of what I call 21st century Uncle Tomism. And I stand by that.
Do you feel that there is a pressure on Black intellectuals in this country to support Barack Obama because of his color? Like we were talking earlier about Cornel West and how when he started denouncing Obama, you know, there was a fierce debate going on. Do you think that exists or no?
I think there's probably pressure to conform to the symbolism of what Barack Obama was supposed to be projecting. But I think that the support that he received was ideological support. So Black intellectuals who supported Barack Obama did so because of their own ideological and class perspectives. Mm-hmm. Those of us who were opposed went beyond the issue of pigmentation and looked at what objective interest was he upholding. And so that was the basis of our critique. So, you know, there was tremendous pressure to go along with everyone else and to muffle your criticism because we had this individual occupying the White House. But for many of us, the very fact that you have an occupation of the White House like that means that you have to be under intense scrutiny because objectively, that position is structured to, in fact, support the interests of the bourgeoisie. That's why even for myself and Dr. Stein, if we were able to win, we would understand the real limitations of that position. And that's why we could not really do much in that position without a powerful social movement from the bottom up, because it's structured to basically support and advance the interests of the ruling elite. So it's not surprising that Barack Obama would play that role. What was unfortunate was that even in the space that he had to bring about some progressive changes for Black and brown, poor people and working class people and working class people in general, he didn't do at all. Basically, if you are opposed to more militarism, if you're concerned and opposed to war, then you cannot give your vote to the Democrats. Because basically, not only is that unprincipled, but basically you are providing them the power and the mandate to, in fact, carry out those kinds of anti-human behaviors.
With the Amazon Dash cart,
Let's
you can skip the
turn that
checkout.
commercial off
Grocery
there.
store, shop
So he covered a lot of great points in that video, and that's why I wanted to cover him today. There is one more. Hang on one second. Hang on one second here. Where is that video? Okay, I think this is it. 1, 2, 3. Actually, no. Let's get to the let's get to the because I just looked at the time. Let's get to the and I might double back to Ajamu. Let's get to the Madeleine Albright story. Now, Madeleine Albright is famously known for a lot of things. I guess a lot of people look at her being the first Secretary of State, female Secretary of State, as you know, a good thing. So let's go ahead and address this, because as Clarence Thomas wouldn't being the first Black Supreme Court justice, if he was, I know he's not, but if he, let's say he was the first, that would also be something not to celebrate. So let's kind of cover now everybody who follows on Twitter have seen this video. Madeleine Albright, I'm not going to set it up. I'm just gonna play it and let everybody listen. It's very short. So let's play. Oh, where is it at? Let's play the video.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
But this is more than this. This is the ideology of white supremacy. killing off indigenous populations, the same thing. We think the price of getting America was worth it. Stealing African people from one continent and bringing them here to build a country, the price was worth it. Murdering and raping and changing their religion and language and cutting them off from their history was worth it. If you're a white supremacist, all of that is correct. All of that is correct because you don't value those lives the same way you value the lives you claim you're protecting. So I'll play it again.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
They don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. Even in how she's asking the question.
It's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
Just the framing in a white supremacy dominated society is so skewed where you have to speak to a murderous war criminal with any level of respect. She's responsible for it, so you have to dress up and sweeten up the question. You murdered 500, something like 500,000, 500,000 kids. What do you have to say for yourself? That's a more appropriate question. Just terrible. Let's see what you're saying in the comments here. She is terrible. You talking about evil on top of evil. Yeah. Capitalists don't give a fuck at all. It's worth it to them. Literally killing off all the indigenous population by them saying all of our heroes and the founding fathers, if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have America. Okay, and what? And how many people would be still alive if America never existed? How would Africa be if America never existed? Got another video of her. So that short one, got another video of this piece of shit. Yeah, a second here. Oh, here's the other thing I wanted to show. Yeah, this. Can I click on this? So just wanted to look at a couple of people shouting out. Damn it. Takes so long to open. Okay, so let's go to Sabby's tweet first. Let's look and see who's praising. Oh, you can see everything right there. There we go. Let's look and see who's praising. Madeleine Albright. If Madeleine Albright was your inspiration, we need to talk. I was devastated by the passing of Madeleine Albright as a refugee skilled diplomat, first female Secretary of State and champion of democracy. She was a huge inspiration to myself and millions of others. Sending my dippers. Isn't Barbara Lee considered a leftist? I thought Barbara Lee, people call her progressive. Champion for democracy? What is she talking about? The glorification of war criminals and just filthy, disgusting people. It makes me think about George Washington, all these great people they love, all these founding fathers. It makes me think, how were those people really like? Because if you're describing Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and this fucking piece of shit, and Colin Powell, the other fucking piece of shit, if you're describing them as great people, the people 100 years from now, that's what they're going to be reading, not knowing that this is a murderous war criminal. That's a good question. Where did she bring democracy? And they're not even hiding it anymore. Absolutely right. So let me go ahead and take this off. Like, I just can't believe these tweets. Barack Obama, of course, imperialist in chief. Of course, he tweeted some shit out. I don't need to put his tweet up. It was some mumbo jumbo bullshit, you know. Propagandizing the minds of black people into this war shit. Just terrible. So I covered the Trump story. I covered Ajamu. I covered the death of this war criminalist, imperialist piece of shit, Madeleine Albright. That's going to be it for this week. I'll be back next week. There's no first show on Fridays. Did I update the scrolling bar? Yeah, this show is Monday through Thursday. So I will be back next week on Monday for You Left Shit Out at 3 p.m. Eastern, and then also at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Nick and CJ show. Do I have? Yeah, Monday through Thursday. I do have it updated there. And thank you for those that watch. Like this stream, so those that are gonna watch it on repeat, it pops up in their feed, especially because of Ajamu. I always want to say it the other way. Ajamu is on this some great content. So everyone have a great rest of today. And roundtable today at 6 p.m. Eastern, I believe. 6 p.m. Eastern, the roundtable. So check that out. And I will be signing off, and I'll see you later.